let's not forget the coffee. Okay, let me see if this is lined up. First of all, good morning, everybody. Or good afternoon, whatever the case may be. Spokane Steve here. Rare time I'm showing my face on camera. That actually could be tilted that way a little more, couldn't it? Let's see what that does. Yeah, that's more like it. Anyway, hope everyone's doing well. I got my Coastal Peaks coffee mug today, San Luis Obispo micro roaster. I'm not drinking Coastal Peaks coffee, unfortunately. I'm drinking the San Francisco Bay Organic Rainforest blend, which is my Costco go-to. So, we've got to do the stats update. And this should be a good one. We've got enough games in the book now where these numbers are starting to take on some meaning. Oh, sure, there's still going to be some outliers. There will be outliers after 162 games. But it'll be fun nonetheless. Today is going to be the lunch day. So that leaves me kind of in a quandary here. I'm stuck between, I'm going to have to postpone today's game, but I could do it later today. Or simply just move it to tomorrow. That would be the first game of June the 20th. So if I get out of here around 1, a couple hours for lunch, 3. If I did it today, I'd be on more like at 3 p.m., 6 Eastern. So let me know if that works for you. If not, we can do it tomorrow. Mookie, he flopped on the coffee table, knocked my coffee over onto the rug this morning and caught part of the ottoman. I think I cleaned the ottoman. The rug, frankly, that rug probably needs to be replaced anyway. I cleaned it as best as I could. He's up in the tower. We'll take a look at him before I set up for the stats update. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into the stats update. We'll take a quick look at the cat. I was up until, 1:30 in the morning. Could not go to sleep. Finally took a sleeping pill, so I didn't get up until 10. So it's I planned to do this earlier. This kind of threw my whole thing for a loop here. Where is he? Hang on, let me get this out of here. There he is. The culprit. That's what he does. He does his damage. And then he books. Well, sure he does. All right, let's see what I can do here to bring this into focus for the stats. Let's bring that over a little bit, not that much. Trying to get the full screen in there. Probably better without the other light, huh? All right, let me get my reading glasses and we're going to dive into it. Oh, wow, they're dirty. Hang on a second. Oh, that's right. He knocked these on the floor overnight, too. Yeah, the cat. Okay, let's fire it up. We'll start with the American League. League stats. And of course, as always, feel free to pause this so that you can check things out at length at your convenience. Anyway, there's the American League standings. Hang on a second, I'm going to grab a couple of my vape pens here. All right. Baltimore with a 6.5 game lead over the Twins now. Partly due to the Twins' free fall, they've dropped 3 in a row in 7 of their last 10. Orioles continue to cruise. They're on a 4-game winning streak. The Indians in 3rd, Tigers in 4th, Chicago White Sox in 5th, Kansas City in 6th. The Angels have been coming on lately. Remember, they won 80 games in real life. They've been underperforming so far, but they've won 6 of their last 10. They seem to be starting to make a move. Not a move on Baltimore. Certainly not trying to say that. And then we've got Washington, Boston, and New York rounding it out. Boston on a 4-game losing streak. They're getting dangerously close to dropping into last place. And let's take a look at we have people in the chat. Hello, Captain Carl. Hello, Joel Turney. It is absolutely Captain Carl. And if you check my video, it's not very long, called Strat-O-Matic, How Realistic Is It? We go into an article I found on standard deviation that explains a lot of that. The the National League standings. The Dodgers have a 5.5 game lead on Pittsburgh. The Phillies, who have lost 7 of their last 10, they've been slumping too, as have the Pirates. So the 2 contenders to the throne both lost 7 of their last 10. Well, the Dodgers are 6-4 in the same period. So the Pirates 5.5 back now. The Phillies 7. The Astros, who've been playing well lately, just a half a game back of the Phillies now for 3rd place. And right on their heels are the Braves, who we'll see in the next game playing the Phillies. They're on a 4-game winning streak. Then you have the Cardinals, the Reds, the Giants, the Mets, and the Cubs. The next thing I'd like to do, I'm trying to be more organized today, is take a look at the first grand totals, the team stats. Let's see where we are in terms of runs. First of all, how many games have we played? 61 for the Twins, 65 for Washington, 62, 61, 64, so somewhere in there. Hey, Mike. Hello, Franklin. So the Orioles lead in batting average and they lead in runs scored. Second in runs scored and batting average are the Twins. It doesn't always work that way. Tigers 3rd in runs scored. Let's look at the home runs. Tigers leading in home runs with 82. Twins 75. Orioles 7. Oops, I forgot about the Indians down there. 77. They're 2nd in the league in home runs, but a low team batting average. The Senators' offense pretty much non-existent here. 228 average, 52 home runs. The Athletics have hit only 23 home runs. The teams that are running, we know who they are. There's the numbers for you. The White Sox and the Athletics like to steal bases. Close to a steal a game, they're averaging. In the pitching department, the Twins lead the league in ERA, and the Washington Senators are 2nd. White Sox with a good staff. And let's face it, the White Sox ERA could even be better if not for their porous defense. And the Tigers playing quite well considering they're last in the league in team ERA. They're scoring a lot of runs. And they have a pretty good record. Normally, you don't see that. Very rare for a team that's last in pitching to have a winning record, but they do. As far as total runs allowed, Twins 226, then it would be 228 for Cleveland. 249 for the White Sox, and then you have Washington and Baltimore is allowed 255. National League, same thing. Pirates still hitting a robust 286 as a team. However, third in the league in runs scored behind the Braves, who lead, and the Astros. It's certainly not for a lack of power, as they're one of the top 4 in home runs. Atlanta 78, the Giants 66, Houston 63, Pittsburgh 62, and the Cubs with Cincinnati also 62. Cubs 61. I wish you could, like a spreadsheet, or click that and make it like home runs top to bottom, but you can't. Dodgers don't score a ton of runs, just enough to go with an incredible 2.75 team ERA. And the Giants are second. And those are your top 2 run prevention teams by a good measure. Next in line would be the Pirates, 3.49 and 273 runs allowed. Someone asked for the fielding. I think it was Bob Cole. Hello, Brian. Yeah, I know, Franklin. I never know when I'm going to get the time to do these stat updates. And the fact of the matter is, I find most people watch these after they go to video anyway. So we got enough people here. Would you prefer a 3 p.m. Pacific start today for the next game, or just push it till tomorrow? In case I miss it, put it in the comments. I'll look at that. Let's go back to the American League. I didn't even really spend any time on that, did I? Fielding percentage. Is this in order? No, of course it isn't. Who has the highest fielding average? The Phillies at 980. They're all pretty close, with the cumulative league average being 975. Unfortunately, we do not have X plays on this. That's not what I want. I'm not sure why it shows X total. How would it even know that? There's no way for it to know that. Total X plays. Those cannot be entered into the computer manually. Thank you, Carl, for pointing that out. So they're performing about as they should be. Okay, here's another favorite of mine. The newspaper style recap, going back to the American League first. You've got your condensed standings off to the left, and we've got the top 5 in several categories here, including batting. Right here, batting average, Al Kaline now leading with a 333 average, and you have Leon Wagner, Boog Powell, Harmon Killebrew, and Jim Fregosi. Frank Robinson is hitting close to that, I think. He's not far out of that. We'll look at that when we get to the top 10s. But he leads in home runs and second in RBIs. Why is that important? Well, of course, because we're all on Triple Crown watch for Frank, who won the Triple Crown in real life that year. Willie Horton and Harmon Killebrew with 17 homers. Others tied with 16, including the Cleveland first baseman, whose name escapes me at the moment. This is how brain dead I am. I'm telling you what, it's almost embarrassing, except I know you guys already know about that, so it is what it is. All right, we got enough people here. Somebody help me out with this one. Who the hell is the Cleveland first baseman? Fred Whitfield. There it is. He's 5th in RBIs. He's one of the guys with 16 homers. Okay. Look on the screen and it shall be revealed. Killebrew leading in RBIs. You've got Robinson, Willie Horton, Brooks Robinson. So both of the Robinsons in the top 5, and Fred Whitfield tied with Brooks Robinson for 4th. Dean Chance with 10 wins, setting the pace here in the pitching department. Jim Palmer 9, McDowell and Mudcat Grant with 8. 3 relievers have 14 saves. Stu Miller, Larry Sherry, Jack Aker, Bob Lee has a dozen, Ron Klein 9, ERA, McDowell and Tiant, the Cleveland teammates, 1.77 and 1.9. We just saw Tiant recently. Yesterday, in fact, right? Pitched an inning out of the pen. The surprising season of Dave Boswell continues. He's 3rd in the league in ERA, 1.94. Then you have Steve Barber and, of course, Mike McCormick, who improved his ERA with a splendid complete game performance yesterday. He's at 2.61 now. Current hitting streaks, Tovar has at 11. Don Buford leading in stolen bases, 25. Campy Campaneris, 22. Then you have Agee, Fred Valentine, and Jose Tartable, who hasn't been playing regularly in quite some time now. In strikeouts, McDowell still ahead with 114, and he's missed quite a few starts. Pete Rickert, Dave Boswell, Jim Cott, and Denny McClain rounding out the top 5. Jumping over to the NL, Gene Alley still leading in his amazing season, 356. So he's come down a little bit, but he still leads the league in average. Ron Santo, Felipe Alou, Joe Torre, and Tim McCarver rounding out the top 5. Hank Aaron, of course, who finally hit his 23rd home run recently, still leads the majors. Jimmy Wynn with 18 and Willie Mays with 17, others tied with 15. Wynn's still an insane RBI total, 69 RBIs. The Astros have played 64 games. Aaron with 57, Bill White 53, Joe Torre 51, Willie Mays 47. In wins, Sandy Koufax, the only 13-game winner. Gibson and Marichal both with 11. Wade Blasingame and Jim Bunning each have 9 wins. Billy McCool leads everyone in saves with 15. Ted Abernathy a dozen. Claude Rameau a dozen, despite the fact that he hasn't pitched well at all. Which goes to show you, if you give a pitcher enough save situations, they'll rack up saves, even if the card's bad. Not that Rameau card is bad. It's not. It's actually a pretty good card. He's just been unlucky. Phil Regan with 11. Others tied with 9. In ERA, Koufax 1.38 leads the majors. Then you have Marichal at 1.81. Gaylord Perry, his teammate, at 2.09. Don Sutton and Bob Veal rounding out the top 5. Pete Rose with a 10-game hitting streak. In stolen bases, Lou Brock leads the majors with 30. Maury Wills behind him with 26. Then it's Willie Davis, Adolfo Phillips, and Sonny Jackson. Strikeouts, once again, Koufax leading the majors, 139. Bob Gibson, 118. Jim Maloney, 112. Jim Bunning, 106. Don Sutton, 103. What else do I normally look at in these things? League leaders. Some of these we've already seen when we did the top fives. Where the hell is my coffee? There it is. So American League batting outside of the top five. Reichart 309. Wow, Frank Robinson's down to 282, so I was way off on him. He was hitting around 316, so his average has dropped considerably recently. What's a surprise there? It'd have to be Bernie Allen, wouldn't it, at 291? Reichart at 309, he hasn't been in the lineup for a while. Hello, Mega. Hello, Mike Terranova. Oh, yeah, the game scores. Thank you, Franklin. Remind me again. We'll get to that in a minute. Hopefully my short-term memory will last for a few minutes. Runs scored doesn't show up on the newspaper. So it's Frank Robinson, Boog Powell, Harmon Killebrew, Rick Reichart, and Norm Cash tied with 43. That rounds out the top five. Again, you can always pause these and take a longer look. Jim Fregosi leading in hits. And in doubles with 23. He's also tied for second with triples. Bernie Allen with 20 doubles. Bernie Allen, to me, is one of the, well, Gene Alley, obviously, but Bernie Allen is one of the more surprising performances so far. I did not expect all that much out of that card. But he's having a fine year. Canigliaro, Yastrzemski, and Dick Green all tied with 17 doubles round out the top five. Bobby Knopp with 10 triples. Then it's Tartable, Fregosi, and Northrup with 7. Blair, Canigliaro, AG, and Pepitone with 6. The power stats, we've seen the top 3, right? And then it was tied for 16, which includes Boog Powell, Rick Reichart, and Fred Whitfield. George Scott, 14. We got several players with 13 home runs. Kurt Bleffery, Jackie Warner, who hasn't played in a while. Rocky Colavito, Jimmy Hall, and Tom Tresh. RBIs, we saw the top 5. Just outside it is Boog Powell with 42, Tony Canigliaro with 40. Killebrew leading in walks. McAuliffe, not at all surprising to see McAuliffe with a lot of walks. Or Paul Shaw, for that matter. Foy's kind of a surprise there. And if Unmitigated were here, he'll probably watch this later, I'm sure. Boy, couldn't he get some good ideas for a beer batter from that column. Oliva's been struck by a pitch 10 times. We saw the stolen base leaders. There is stolen base percentage, which, while important in real life, I don't put that much stock on in a replay. Sacrifice hits are mostly going to be pitchers. In fact, they're all pitchers, aren't they? Yep, every one of them. Tommy Agee earlier had a 27-game hitting streak, which is likely to stand as the high. Slugging on base and OPS. I'm going to let you look at that while I use the restroom. through me like crap through a goose. So Boog Powell leading in slugging now. Killebrew, Reichart, Frank Robinson, Fred Whitfield, Al Kaline. And you've had a while to look at the rest. Kaline leading in on base. Killebrew 440, Powell at 404. Combine them and you got OPS. 3 players over 1,000. Boog Powell, Harmon Killebrew, and Al Kaline, with Rick Reichart and Frank Robinson rounding out the top 5. I don't spend a lot of time on the runs created. Runs created will tend to artificially inflate players who walk a lot. Although this particular list doesn't look that bad. Kind of surprised to see Jim Fregosi leading in total bases. Frank Robinson, Powell, Killebrew, and Yastrzemski rounding out the top 5. I'm not really huge on the lefty-righty thing, but we'll pause on that for a minute. You can take a look at that while I get some more coffee. Boy, I'm getting down there. I'll tell you what, if I do play the game later today, I may have to make another half pot of coffee. I know Jeffrey Gooden would be saying, half a pot? Why bother? Make a full pot. And of course, no X percentage. There's errors. Fregosi leading in that category as well. Tends to be dominated by shortstops, doesn't it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them are shortstops. All right, let's go to pitching. We've seen the top 5 in wins. Just outside that are a handful of pitchers with 7 wins. Barber, McNally, Sonny Siebert, Lolich, the Cotman, and Pasquale. Mel Stottlemyre, the only 9-game loser. There's winning percentage. ERA, we saw the top 5. Just out of the top 5 is Dave McNally, 2.85. Pasquale, Talbot, Denny McLain, Fritz Peterson, Jim Bouton, and Marcelino Lopez. I think we're going to see Lopez again pretty soon, if I remember right. Games pitched, games started. Complete games. This will come as no surprise to anyone. That's one I really enjoy. And we have 4 pitchers with half a dozen complete games. Dave McNally, Sonny Siebert, Louis Tiant, and Jim Cott. A few with 5 and a handful with 4. We saw the top 5 in saves. There's the rest of the save leaders. Wilhelm picking up the pace of late since he took over the primary stopper duties from Fisher, who was traded to Baltimore. And Wilhelm and Larry Sherry, the only ones without a blown save. That's kind of cool. Shutouts, it's still Pasquale with 3. We got a handful of pitchers who have twirled 2 shutouts. Strikeouts, we saw the top 5. Just outside the top 5, Earl Wilson, McNally, Barber, Palmer, 3 Orioles there bunched together, Tiant and Lolich. Let's look at... There's pitchers batting, which again, I don't put much stock in that. It's so few at bats. It's really fluky. Hits per 9 is kind of cool. Look at Tiant's numbers, 4.8 hits per 9. So Tiant and McDowell, what a 1-2 punch for Cleveland. You'd almost think they'd be doing better, and their lineup's not bad. Or is it? Second to the last in batting. Middle of the pack in runs scored. And fourth in team ERA. Okay, what is record book is what I want. This is what Franklin was talking about. Pitcher game score. Isn't that right, Franklin? Is this what you were referring to? The May 21st, 97 score of Sam McDowell still at the top. I'm going to sit on that for a minute and give you a chance to look at it. Yep, that's what he wanted. They also have batter game score, but see, I don't know how that's computed. I know how the pitcher game score is computed. It was invented by Bill James. It was written about in one of the abstracts. I'm not quite sure when or how batter game score came to be, but we can look at it. There it is, batter game score. Still that April 19th Don Demeter. Oh, Mantle caught him with that June 8th performance. An 85. You got 2 by Horton. And so somehow Bob Savarin sneaks in there. Wow. Okay, there's a stunner. Nothing at all special about that mediocre Savarin card. But as the old saying goes, every dog will have their day. Let's go over to the National League and look at the same thing. Just recently, Koufax, oh, that was the game he went 12 innings. That's almost an unfair comparison. But a 99 in 12 innings. Or did we see McNally? Hang on a second, I'm jumping around a lot here. Yeah, there it is. Well, that was 5-6. Is that the one you meant? I guess it is. That's the only one where he made the list. On May the 6th. Second highest score also belongs to Koufax, and that one was in 9 innings. Then Maloney. The 2 Marichal games, and this is where I take exception to the game score. I know I say this every time, but I think it bears repeating. This April 28th game of Marichal, because he didn't strike out a bunch, but if you remember, that was a complete game shutout in which he faced the minimum. Can't do much better than that. But strikeouts apparently weigh heavy in these. Okay, popping back. Hello, David from Germany. Hey, Richard's a regular on here. He's from Kiel, Germany. So we got 2 guys from Germany now. The batting, we saw the top 5. Right outside of it's Adolfo Phillips, Jim Ray Hart, Pete Rose, Clendenin Mazeroski, and Alou, 3 Pittsburgh teammates. So the Pirates have 4 among the leaders, and they lead everybody in team batting. What was it, 286? Jimmy Wynn's still hitting .310 with all those walks. I think that was a 254 average. Somewhere in the 250s he actually hit in real life. Joe Morgan leads in runs scored. Alou, Felipe Alou, Wynn, Morgan's teammate, Clemente and Aaron, and Callison round out the top 5. Felipe Alou leading in hits with 102. Clemente has 23 doubles. Felipe Alou 20. I'm wondering if I think Alou still leads in total bases. We'll get to that real soon here. Lou Johnson and Gene Alley with 17 doubles. Alou with 10 triples. Morgan and McCarver with 8. Handful with 5. Home runs and RBIs, we've seen the top 5 already. We saw the top 3 actually in the NL because it's a 3-way tie for 4th with Billy Williams, Dick Allen, and Jim Ray Hart. Remember, Allen missed a bunch of games early in the year. Stargell 14, and then Santo, Clendenin, McCovey 13, Bill White with a dozen. We saw the top 5 in RBIs. Just outside of it is Jim Ray Hart and Ron Santo. Joe Morgan, the walking machine, almost a walk a game. Santo, Parker, and then Aaron and Wynn with 35 apiece. Aaron and Wynn, not surprisingly, lead in intentional walks. Well, it's really not that many. Lou Johnson's been plunked 10 times. Felipe 7. Gentile tied for 3rd with 6. We haven't seen Gentile for a while. There's old Byron Brown, the strikeout king. Sacrifice hits. Mostly pitchers, but a couple of position players sneak in here. Sonny Jackson and Gene Alley. We saw the top 5 in steals. Stolen base percentage. This would be a good time to type in anything else you might want to see. Maury Wills had a 20-game hitting streak. No current streak of any significance. I think Rose had a 10. Has a 10. Okay, the power numbers. Mays leading in slugging. Felipe Alou, Ron Santo, Jimmy Wynn, and Don Clendenin tied for 4th. A whole handful over 500. Hart, Torrey, Phillips, Lefevre, Stargell, Clemente, and McCarver. Santo with an insane 465 on base. David usually listens and enjoys with breakfast. Yeah, well, my first cup of coffee, that's when I look on my online teams and sometimes replay some of the games. So yes, Strat-O-Matic and morning coffee, what a way to start the day. I'm with you on that one. Not surprising to see the walking machine Morgan second in on base with Torrey, Phillips, and Wes Parker rounding out the top 5. So the OPS, Santo the only one over 1,000. Felipe Alou, Willie Mays, Jimmy Wynn, and the red-hot Joe Torre. Torrey's been on fire in his last 10 games. Well, we'll get to this later, but I already made out the score sheet. Last 10 days for Torre, a 452 average. 3 home runs, 9 RBIs. Total bases, it's still Alou and by a wide margin. Look at that. 172 total bases for Felipe Alou. Well, it figures. Wynn, Hart, Aaron, and Mays round out the top 5. I'll pause it on the lefty-righty stuff in case you're interested. It's entertaining. I don't normally spend a lot of time on that. Although there's Dick Allen's crazy card against lefties. Who would you expect, Allen? And the 8 home runs, well, hell, you know you know why that is. For one, he missed almost a month of the season. And 2, the opposing managers hardly ever let a lefty face him if they can help it. I wonder what his lefty-righty breakdown is. We could look at that too. That would be accurate. No X percentage. Errors, it's Boyer and Stargell and Fuentes with 14. Going to the pitching totals, we've seen the top 5. Just out of the top 5 is Bob Veal with 8, Don Sutton with 7, and a handful with 6. Tony Cloninger and Ray Sadecki, the only 8-game losers. Winning percentage. And we'll scoot down to ERA here. I'll leave the winning percentage up there for a minute. We've seen the top 5. The 6th is Durker, 237. Jim Bunning, Bobby Bolin, Wade Blassingame, Jack Hamilton, now in the bullpen. Bob Gibson and Milt Pappas round out the leaders. Innings pitched. Not surprised to see Koufax, Gibson, Bunning, and Marichal up there. Chris Short right there with them. There's your games pitched, games started, complete games. Koufax with 10, Gibson and Marichal with 9. I tell you, what a treat it is to have a season where all 3 of these legendary Hall of Famers are having great seasons. There's the rest of the save leaders. We saw the top 4. It's Face and Lindsay tied with 9. No one's at 1,000 in save percentage, but McCool leads. Marichal leads the majors with 4 shutouts. Then we have a handful with 2. Most walks. We saw the top 5 in strikeouts. Just outside the top 5 are Marichal, Veal, Short, with Bolin, Holtzman, Cloninger, and Drysdale rounding out the list. Let's see, I was going to go to... Hang on a second, that's not what I want at all. I was going to go to Phillies team stats. Home and road probably doesn't mean anything in this replay. We're not using ballpark effects. But what I want to see is this. See, Allen's only had 51 at-bats against lefties compared to 121 against righties. So 8 home runs and 51 at-bats. Yeah, I'd say he's mashing lefties. Phillies have been in kind of a slump lately. I'm going to pause on this for a second. We can look at the Phillies as a team. Tony Taylor has played a lot. He's certainly not helping. Grote not hitting much. I think they should play Doug Clemens more. He hasn't hit yet, but the card against righties is actually pretty good. You wouldn't want him facing a left-hander. Wine is in there for his glove. The rest of these guys are all hitting pretty well. Pitching. 374 isn't terrible. That's pretty good, actually. And Buell's actually done a respectable job since coming over in the trade with the Cubs. Chris Short is underperforming. Larry Jackson's underperforming. Fox, who they bought from Detroit, has been terrible, but he does have 3 saves. These guys are all computer-only cards. Let's see, Franklin's here. Well, we'll do this for Franklin's benefit. Orioles winning at home and on the road, not surprisingly. And there's the Orioles stats through 64 games. Heart of the Order certainly holding up their share. Russ Snyder and Sam Bowen certainly aren't bringing much to the table, which would make you wonder why they weren't playing Paul Blair more. Center field for quite a long time now for the Orioles has pretty much been a straight platoon of Snyder and Blair. Pitching numbers. Bill Short's got some funny line, doesn't he? 2-0, 3 appearances, only 1 inning. Talk about a vulture. Stu Miller's kind of underachieved. Seems like Palmer would be doing better. On the other hand, he was a rookie that year. At least I think he was. Don't expect much out of John Miller. I would expect more out of Wally Bunker. Eddie Fisher certainly hasn't got the job done since coming over in the trade, but he's only been in 2 games. Yeah, Lau, some of them may not, in fact. If they have really like 6 at-bat computer-only cards, we won't see them. Boy, now I'm trying to think of what else I normally do in these things. It's been a while. Let's go back to the league stats. What else is there? This I don't normally look at, but it's kind of interesting. The pitching numbers aren't very exciting, but you can see the team's on base and slugging and the team OPS. Also, you can see that Baltimore's received almost twice as many intentional walks as anybody else. So OPS, Baltimore 750, Minnesota 748. Not really surprising there. Excuse me. The Tigers lead with a 760. Well, we knew that team could hit, didn't we? Which should not be at all surprising. Also over 700. The Angels at 720. National League, intentional walks are a little more spread out. OPS leader is the Pirates, not surprisingly, then the Braves, and then the Astros. Who would be in 4th? The Phillies, 715, narrowly over the Cubs at 707. Pitching has complete games, shutouts. saves, batters faced. The Cubs have issued 10 intentional walks for some reason. That was certainly not by design. Hello there, Colin. Welcome in. So a little bit more in depth. Spent a little more time on the stats today, which I intended to do going in. Any particular team anyone wants to look at before I get out of here? I've got about 8 minutes or so before I need to get moving. Eight to 10 minutes. I could push it to 10. Yeah, we've already got 51 minutes. Usually 38 to 40 minutes seems to be, 35 to 40 seems to be. David wants to look at the Cardinals. All right. Let's do that. Thank you, David. Pretty even in home road. And here's the numbers. Almost knocked my cup over. Mookie knocked my cup over earlier. I'm trying to even the score. Remember George Kernick? Computer-only card. We may have seen the last of him. I don't know. A lot of good numbers at the top, of course. Francona, who was our player of the game recently, certainly hasn't done much. You got to wonder why he's in the cleanup spot lately. Gagliano can't hit. Javier's underachieved. Let's look at their pitchers. 4-1-5. Look, Sadecki was good for them. He has stunk since going over to the Giants. The guys at the bottom dragging it down. Oh my God, Nelson Bryles has just been awful. Tracy Stallard's been awful. Don Dennis. You can see the problem. This bullpen is problematic to manage. Obviously, close game late, you're going to go to Horner. Jasper, when he's been in the pen, is a good option. Woodashik as well. They're all lefties. If you need a righty out of the pen, you got to go to Don Dennis. That's very telling. They don't really have a dependable right-handed option out of the pen. Now, if you were managing the team, how could you fix that? You could put Jackson in the pen? No, you can't do that. They need him to start. If it were me, I'd probably move Washburn to the pen. See, Jackson and Simmons have split time between starting and relief. I'd probably start them full time. And this is all academic because we're using actual lineups and starters. But I'd start them full time, move Washburn to the pen, where you'd have a better right-handed option than Don Dennis. Cepeda isn't playing as much. No, he's not, and I wonder if he doesn't have a minor injury or something. 118 at bats. One thing this stupid thing doesn't do is combine them, so it doesn't show his giant numbers. But this does. So he had 170. He has 170 at bats actually. That line there in blue. Okay, the white line, of course, is his real life numbers. The line in blue is his replay numbers. That combines his St. Louis, San Francisco numbers. But yeah, he seems to be, of late anyway, he's in the first base platoon with Tito Francona. Okay, why did they trade for him if they were going to play Francona against righties? These are questions that come to my mind, not having really been around. I was around, but I mean, I wasn't really following baseball in 1966. Although I know who a large percentage of these players are, of course. Well, I don't have much to add. I'm going to call it a day on the stats update. He hasn't budged. And I'm going to get out of here. Get ready for lunch. And then I will decide whether or not I'm going to do the Braves-Phillies game later this afternoon or just postpone it till tomorrow. I think I'm going to try for later this afternoon. So hopefully most of you guys can make it. Anyway, thanks for checking out the stats. And a really good crowd in the chat. Best crowd I've ever had in the stats update. So thank you for that. Hit the like and subscribe. And be sure to join me for my next live game. It'll be, is it Phillies at Braves or Braves at Phillies? It's one of the two. It is Phillies at Braves. All right, Spokane Steve signing out. Have a great day, everybody. I'll catch you later.